I think the Texans are kind of my bad for the mic. The Texans kind of take an L to the Tennessee Titans. I mean, they're going to take a knee and get out of here. I think the Texans have a hard time explaining this loss. What do you say? This is Lance Hayes with Sports Social Live. I am mad. I'm dejected. I am pissed off. The Texans come out, lay a dud to the Tennessee Titans after a 5-sack game. I mean, what can you say about the Texans? The third down efficiency of the Texans, they were 3 for 13 on third down efficiency, 11 for 89 in penalties. So we have a return of the undisciplined play from the Texans to the Tennessee Titans. Of all teams, the Tennessee Titans, you go out here and lay a trash loss to the Titans. D'Amico Ryan has to be disappointed. Bobby Slowick has to be disappointed. The offensive line, like, what are you doing? Laramie Tunsil, you are the most penalized, overpaid offensive lineman in the NFL. You have to look at yourself and say, what the hell? Looking at the Texans, the defense played subpar as well, but I mean, you come out of there with a ton of sacks on the defense. I am pissed off. I am mad. How do you feel about this Texans loss? Let's talk about it. It had to be a sad loss. So the Texans go down to the Titans. The Texans are now 7-5. Titans are now 3-8 against the Texans, and the AFC South is kind of close, one game closer to the bottom tier. And the kind of sorry AFC South, like, we suck as as a division, as an AFC South division. The Texans have to do better, man. The Texans have to do better. The Texans have to stop beating themselves, and I keep on saying this, and this is going to be the theme of the week. The Texans have to stop beating themselves. If you're a true Texans fans and you watch this game, all of our 7 wins have almost been losses, and we just beating ourselves every time we go down the field. Every time we get the ball, it looks like there's a chance. You just don't have any confidence in the Texans on the offensive side of the ball. We beat ourselves. I'm not going to talk about the defense right now, but I'm going to talk about the offense. Just the overall makeup of the offense just pisses you off because you constantly go out here and beat yourselves down the stretch. Even when you have a chance, you beat yourself. Then you try to rely on Kaimi Fairbairn, and he makes these field goals is great, but you can't keep on relying on him. You got to get in the box and score. The Texans are beating themselves. The end of the game, it was terrible to me. I just think, how, as an offensive line, are you going to justify paying Laramie Tunsil, Shaq Mason, Titus Howard? How are you going to justify paying them? You also have to think about, when it comes to beating yourself, CJ Stroud, he is having a tough season. I don't know what he has going on mentally, but he is having a difficult season. Even when the offensive line is playing well, CJ Stroud is making it harder on himself as a QB. He is missing the open passes. He is missing the anticipated passes. He is having a difficult season. But ultimately, the Texans have to stop beating themselves. 3 for 13 on third downs is terrible. Terrible, terrible. And you can't blame Bobby for all of this. Bobby is not the blame for TJ missing throws, for Mechie being off key with him, for Joe Mixon not knowing the motion plays. That might be a little bit of Bobby, but let's be clear. Bobby is not the blame for a lot of these undisciplined plays. And I have to say, the Texans do not give me any confidence when it comes to winning games and going down and driving. I don't have any confidence in them when they get the ball. I didn't have that much confidence in the game this week. It did not feel like as if the Texans would come out and be that top 3 contending team. I just did not have that feel. The Cowboys game was good. It felt great, but I just did not have the feel that the Texans will come down and play this type of game. And I also didn't have the feel that the defense would not play as well either. So you look at this, the Texans defense had a hard time with Calvin Ridley. Jalen Petrie being injured definitely showed that we have to make up for his absence. You did have Jimmy Ward step up and play. But all in all, the Texans had an undisciplined game this season. And CJ Stroud. So we're gonna roll over to CJ Stroud, man. If you're a CJ Stroud fan, I am. You have to be disappointed in his play today. He went out today and just kind of did not make us happy. Like, I mean, 20 for 31, 247 yards, two touchdowns, two interceptions. Yeah, he got the two TDs. Yeah, I'm okay with how he did it, but it felt like he was struggling the entire time of the game. Even when he had good pass coverage. Let's be clear, the Texans offensive line is garbage, basura, trash. But CJ has had good coverage today. CJ had some good pass protection today. CJ missed passes. CJ threw interceptions. Hey, he is not playing the best. So, as anybody should say and would say, CJ Stroud is struggling this game and maybe this season. He had 247 yards, but off the back of great receiver getting open, Nico Collins. He has to do better. I think CJ Stroud is kind of going through a slump. The offensive line didn't help him. Sophomore slump inbound. You look at what happened. Bobby Slowick started calling the quicker plays. He started giving the crossing routes. He started being deceptive in the passes. CJ Stroud missed the passes. And even when he has the opportunity, CJ Stroud does not run. And I've talked about this on multiple occasions. CJ Stroud has to get used to pulling down the ball and just sliding for the first down. When it's 3rd and 3 and you have room to get the first, you have to just run, slide, or get out of bounds and get the first down because that's going to pull up those linebackers. And when you have those multi-level plays, CJ Stroud needs to learn to use his feet and athleticism more to pull down the linebackers. No defense is really keying or targeting him to pull the ball down. He has 5 and 7 yards. Once he starts doing that, it allowed the Nico Collins plays, it allowed the Cade Stovers, the Dalton Schultz to get behind the linebackers because they have to kind of be concerned about him going to scoop for that first down. On the third down, if we're 3 and 13 for the third downs, if I'm Bobby Slowick, I'm telling him, hey, CJ, if it's 3rd and short, pull the ball down, run, and slide. We have to start getting linebackers to bite up on CJ Stroud. They do not care. All they're doing is dropping back in pass coverage on passing downs. They're not questioning if CJ is going to do any type of athletic movement. Think about what the good quarterbacks do. The top contending quarterbacks, even in history, Tom Brady, all the guys, Peyton Manning, they would always pull the ball down in 3rd and short and scoot and slide. Fat man jog. Just a fat man jog, chug lug, slide. CJ Stroud has to do a better job of doing that in these 3rd and shorts. I'm not going to blame Bobby for CJ's lack of kind of gaming right there. That's when he has to get the mental block out of his head. And he's saying that, oh, I'm a pocket, I'm a passer. Be that gamer that we need at QB. That's what you have to do as a QB. Any of the top 10 plays there, top 10 quarterbacks, well, top 3 quarterbacks, they pull the ball down and run. And I agree with you, Brandon. What's up, Brandon? How you doing? Yeah, Bobby puts people in bad plays. I'm not saying Bobby's oblivious to any of this, but Bobby puts people in bad plays. He puts our offensive linemen in bad position to where they can't even do what they need to do. And I agree with you. And it turns into a sack every time. Hey, one thing I have to know, and Brandon, we talked about this before. Let's talk about how we cannot figure out how to run a good screenplay to save our lives. I don't know what is Bobby's block, but the Houston Texans cannot figure out how to run a screenplay, a simple screen that to save our lives. I don't know what the issue is with that. Bobby Slowick has to draw up better screenplays. We have to do a better job at this. I mean, it's at this point it's ridiculous. I'm pissed off at it. Actually, I'm just sitting here stewing. What I actually want to talk about, and you saw it across the entirety of the Texans team, is a lack of discipline. The Texans truly lack discipline. And Brandon, we talked about the screenplays and everything before, but it stems from a lack of discipline on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. The Texans just can't get it fixed. The Texans had 11 penalties for 89 yards in this game. I'm going to say it again. 11 penalties for 89 yards in this game. The last time the Texans had over 10 penalties, we got our asses kicked by the Minnesota Vikings. It is terrible. It is terrible on the Houston Texans. And let's talk about the Titans. The Titans had 6 penalties for 35 yards. The Texans all nearly doubled the Titans in penalties. It's just terrible play by the Houston Texans, terrible and undisciplined play. And you see it throughout the sidelines, throughout the team. They're arguing, they're fighting, they're not being disciplined. CJ's doesn't get the point. They don't even on the coaching staff. The adjustments being made are taking over 20 seconds to get in, and they're coming up to the ball late. You see CJ having to hurry up. We have to even hurry up on punts. The undisciplined play calling starts at the top. So D'Amico and Bobby Slowick and whoever else need be has to do better at calling the plays and just the tempo of the game. And that's just undisciplined football that from the top down. We return to the undisciplined football. That Minnesota game pissed me off. And speaking of undisciplined nature of the Texans, Laramie Tunsil being the most penalized offensive lineman in the league is a slap in the face. He 20 million, you make $20 million. I'm not saying you, even if you're not the best at blocking, at least be the best discipline. Come on, dude. You are making $20 million. $20 million over 20. I think it's $24 million, and you are the most penalized offensive lineman in the league. And remember back in Minnesota, oh, they're picking on me. They're calling the play. Laramie, come on, bro. Like LT, that is terrible, terrible play by Laramie. And I'm just mad at that how the Texans are coming out on the ball. Defensively, we weren't disciplined as we should have been. We gave up a lot of passing lanes. I think you saw typically, and before we were doing things, Daniel Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. would stay more in the passing lanes and play more responsible football, which did not end up in the sacks, but we had the high pressures. I think this game we kind of did not use our pass rushing lanes the best. Yes, we had a lot of sacks, but it allowed for the big plays down the field, the explosive plays to Cavalry really. I also think D'Amico relies too much on the overall defense. He has a stud in Stingley, and just not putting Stingley in the place to make plays on that best receiver kind of allows us to get cooked in multiple places. But the Texans play undisciplined football. It leads to the Houston Texans getting beat 32-27. And I am pissed off as a Texans fan to lose to the Tennessee Titans. I almost called them, oh, hell no, the Tennessee Titans. As a Texans fan, you have to be pissed. So if you're a Texans fan, drop your H's up in the chat. Let's talk about it. Give me something to talk about this game. I want to talk about a few things, but if you like property management, go ahead and tap into River Tree Property Management. It's ran by one of the best property managers that I do know. His name is Brian Rubio. Check out Brian at River Tree Property Management and tell him Lance sent you. But let's talk about some positives. I love seeing Nico Collins play. All the negative aside, because I can go on for days and I'll talk about it in my post-game wrap-up. Nico Collins is a baller. Joe Mixon's a baller. They are out there fighting for their lives, and the Houston Texans aren't giving them anything. And it's sad to see that Nico Collins is balling so hard. He had 5 receptions for 92 yards. He should have went over 100 had he not had a few called back. Nico Collins will be one of the best Texans receivers in history. You got Andre, you got D-Hop, and Nico is going to be talked about in the same regard. Nico is a baller, and I just love watching him play. Nico even gets downfield and blocks well. So you can't be mad at the effort that Nico Collins had out there. Uh, just what he was doing. He can't help what the offense was doing, but Nico Collins balled out with his 5 receptions for 92 yards, averaging 18.4 yards per yards in the game and 1 touchdown. You had to give him his credit. I also want to talk about Tank Dell being scrappy and balling. Although he did have a few drops in the game, it's just good to see Tank Dell balling. I need him to make those catches, though. I need Tank Dell to make those catches and make the plays where they are needed, because it is highly disappointing for me as a Texans fan to see them struggle. But I also want to get down and talk about a few things. I want to talk about Jalen Petrie. Jalen Petrie's impact has been noted. You can see the 4-2-5 nickel position that he plays. When he was gone, the Titans definitely were having success when he was gone. I think Jalen Petrie's play, I think he's going to be out for a week or so with that shoulder injury, because it was a pretty tough hit. Jalen Petrie had some good play for the team. I hate to see him be injured. I talked trash about him the entire time. Just like I did not like him at safety, but seeing him at the 4-2-5 and that nickel position, it was good to see. I'm Lance Hayes. This is Sports Social Live. Subscribe, like, share. Drop a comment if you like how Jalen Petrie is playing. Tell me how you like the missing of Jalen Petrie. I thought when we went to the 4-3 a couple of times on the field, I wanted to see a little bit more from the linebacker core. I think it kind of put Henry To'oTo'o in a weird spot. I think the 4-2-5 allows Henry To'oTo'o to kind of roam a little bit better, and Alshire, they kind of know what to do in the 4-2-5. So when Petrie went out, it was an adjustment that they had to make, and you could tell they were a little bit rusty at playing that traditional 4-3 or playing without Petrie. So the impact of Petrie has had on this defense has to be kind of noted and seen. I hope Jalen Petrie is able to get better. We're missing him on that side of the field. Gonna keep it rolling because I have to go to work. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and watch Texans football. So I'm Lance Hayes at Sports Social Live. I'm the #1 global Texans fan, and I just want to talk a little bit about this game. So going into the game, man, the team stats, I'm mad. The total yards for the Tennessee Titans was at 369, and it had 237 passing, 132 rushing. That's crazy considering the fact that the Houston Texans had 8 sacks on the day. 8 sacks, and we still lost the game. And that's just crazy. And then going down 3 of 13 and third down efficiency, 54 total plays to their 66. The Texans themselves allowed 4 sacks, 2 in later parts of the game. It was not a good game for the Houston Texans, and you have to just look at what's going on here. The Texans offense just has to do better. The Texans rushing game, 40 yards total in rushing, is terrible when you have a running back like Joe Mixon in the backfield. 40 yards of rushing for the Houston Texans. It is terrible. And I don't think it's on the backs of the offensive line. I think Bobby could have schemed up some better runs, but they were going against Tavondre Sweat and Simmons and on our defensive line. That is the #2 defensive line in the NFL. So you're not going to get too many runs. They're going to make you pass the ball, and the Texans tried to pass the ball, but we definitely struggled when it came down to it. The Houston Texans struggled. It's just sad to see because so much talent, so much firepower, but we just can't put it together a complete football game. Special teams, offense, defense. We are struggling. We are struggling. I just it's hard to see as a Houston Texans fan. If you're a Houston Texans fan and you didn't like that game, put thumbs down because I didn't like that game. You can boo that. That was a terrible game. The Houston Texans fall to the Tennessee Titans 32-27. Let's talk about some good. If you can say there's any good, I think the good in the game was Nico Collins. The good in the game was that, maybe special teams, you see Pierce back getting spikes and pumps in the special teams play. But all in all, I think the Texans, we have to go back to the drawing board, and it's going to be it's a tough loss for the Texans, because you lose a little bit of the ability down the stretch to rest players, because somebody could turn it on. Indianapolis could turn it on. It's going to be, this one hurt. It should have hurt, because they talked a lot of trash. I know they talked a lot of trash, and we are going to feel that one going down the stretch. And as for CJ, going back to CJ, I think CJ Stroud is definitely having a mental block this game and this season. CJ, I don't know. I want to fight the good fight for CJ, but it's a lot of this stuff is on CJ. A lot of these issues when the offensive line blocks well, it's on CJ. He has to make the throws. He has to make the passes. I mean, Will Levis makes the passes. Why can't CJ? So I need CJ to step it up, play better, just do better. I need the offensive line. We know the offensive line sucks. So I need Bobby to dial up better schemes for the offensive line. We know what we have. And defensively, the defense they make the tackle on the first contact. Houston Texans defense had a difficult time making the tackle when on the first contact. They were having success after contact. If you look at Tony Pollard, he went 22 carries, 150 yards. He averaged 5.2 yards a carry. That definitely shows me that the defense was struggling, and we played undisciplined, unlike we previously have before on the defensive side of the ball. One, the defense did not wrap up. Two, the defense just gave up some of the rushing lanes and allowed the Tennessee Titans kind of subpar offensive right tackles to be successful, which you didn't think would happen in this game. I did not think that Texans defensive line would kind of give up so much run pressure, but it's mostly due to yards after contact, and Tony Pollard balled out. He had the yards after contact. Also, Kevin really balled out for the Titans. I mean, look at what he did. 5 receptions for 93 yards, 18.6. And then you had that huge play from the tight end. That was a nail in the coffin right there for me. Titans came out, they won the game. You can't be mad. 32-27. Houston Texans fall to the Tennessee Titans. Like, subscribe, share. I'm Lance Hayes. It's Sports Social Live. I gotta go to work. It's 6:00 in the morning and 6:30 in the morning here in Japan. I'm the Texans #1 global fan. Subscribe.